Okay, Dixit sir. Sir, over to you. We welcome you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Prateek sir, and thank you everyone. Thanks to RIE Bhopal. And you would be surprised to know that I'll be teaching such a large online class for the first time in my life. It's like 140 plus participants that I can see here. So it's really wonderful. Um, I remember I have fond memories of Regional Institute of Education, Bhopal. I have been there twice related to the events of this program, of this diploma course. Uh, Dr. Ganga Mahato is a good friend of mine. So I'm happy to be here amongst you. Okay. So the plan is for the next 50 minutes or so. So I'll share my thoughts. And I don't have any PowerPoint because there are a few key themes and a few arguments about the language and so coming from varied language thinkers, so that I'll present before you. And in the remaining 30 minutes, so we shall have Q&A, a little bit of interaction. Having said this, so when if you feel like sharing anything or commenting on anything, so you're most welcome to stop me, and you can unmute yourself and speak, or you can type in the chat box also. I'll keep an eye on the chat box as well. So without much ado, let's make a beginning. Okay. So before we look at what language thinkers have to say about language, so let's quickly understand or let's quickly look at what language means. Okay. So can we have a few quick responses? Let's say one-liners. What is language? What comes to our mind when we listen to this word, when we hear this word language?
Medium for communication.
It's for communication, a means of communication. Okay. It's a medium of communication.
System of
All right. Language as a medium to communicate. Okay.
So, language is an identity.
Okay. It's an identity. Okay. Excellent. It's an
language is
organism.
the way of communication. Along with, like, it
Language.
has grammar, vocabulary, and like
Yes,
syntax kind of thing. So, all,
language is
and
a
we can
system of systems, and
exchange
language is
our
the people.
thoughts, ideas
Okay.
through the language.
It is medium of expressing something.
Okay. Okay. So I can
Language is
see.
culture itself.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. So there are two issues that that stand out: culture and identity. But rest of the responses that I can see, so they are hovering around communication, expression, articulation, sharing, etc. Okay. So pause for a minute, reflect on this. So do we use language only for communication?
Much more than that.
Much more than that. Okay. So communication is just one tiny aspect of language. Okay. Because language does lots many things. Because I teach a course here at Ambedkar University, um, and we look at the evolution of human language. Okay. So most of us subscribe to a belief that language has evolved. Okay. Do you agree with this? Human language has evolved. Okay,
Yes.
I can see a few lots many thumbs up. Okay. All right. So how many of you believe that human language has developed over a period of time?
That I do believe.
Okay, lot many others believe.
Yes,
Okay,
so we believe.
excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, language develops. Okay. So when we said language develops, language evolves, so we are intending to say that the language that we have today is far more advanced than the language that was there in the 19th century, language that was there in the 15th century, language in the 11th century, and so on. Is that is that how we interpret this notion of development, evolution, etc.? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. All right. So if we believe, okay. So if we, okay. Yes, sir. It be one way. Okay. So if we believe in this kind of theory, the development of language, then at one point of time in the history, we all must be barking and mewing, right? Because it must have started at one point of time, and then gradually it grew and developed. So which means we have to reach to a point when there was no language at all. So probably we all must have been, barking at each other or doing something else. Right. So one of the, a theory, there are several theories of the origin of language, and most of the theories that we know, so they come from the Western thinking or Western schools of linguistics. So in this session, we are going to look at both Western schools of linguistics as well as Eastern schools. And I'll be, framing this session based on the reading material that you have, but I won't be, reiterating or repeating the things which are already there. I'll try to supplement what isn't there, so that you can have a full picture of it. So coming back to the language evolution and language development, please understand it. So just imagine that if we look at 15th century language, and if we just imagine that we transport ourselves to 15th century, so we might find it literally difficult to understand that language. Okay, do you agree with this? So if we transport ourselves to
Yes, sir.
15th century, so it would be a little challenging for us to understand what people are saying. Okay. And just imagine that a person from 15th century comes to 21st century and starts living in our neighborhood. So probably they also might find equally difficult this language. So the point that
Absolutely, sir.
the point that I'm trying to make is languages evolve. Okay. So languages evolution or its development is not in the vertical direction. Please understand this. Languages evolve, languages develop means languages calibrate themselves to the emergent context. Okay. So languages are always complete in any given point of time. The language of 15th century was complete because we use language for accomplishing certain purposes. Language use is a purposeful activity, and there were a set of purposes people wanted to fulfill. So that language definitely helped for the people of 15th century. All right. So today we have a language. So this is helpful to fulfill the purposes that we face today or we have to deal with. So languages are complete at every given point of time in the history. So we cannot say that our language is advanced than the language of the previous century, because if we subscribe to that, then people coming in the 25th century might say that we had a primitive form of language. So this is one thing. And second question that I would like to pose for you is, what is meant by learning language? Yeah. So what is meant by learning language? When can we say that we have learned language? For example, most of us claim here that there are 148 teachers here in this classroom. So we all know, we all claim, we all easily say that we know our first languages, right? Whatever it is, Marathi, Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, whatever language that we have, so we claim that we know that language. So what do we mean by this word know? What is the meaning of a statement like, I know Hindi, I know English? What do we communicate by saying this?
So by saying this, we say that we understand what is being said. We are able to decipher the messages,
Okay,
and accordingly, we can think and communicate and interact in the language. We
okay,
can we can even express and further create things in using the language symbols.
Okay.
Sir, when we know a language, we understand, we can speak, we can read, and we can write a language.
Hmm. So we can speak, we can
So it
read, we can
involves
write, or
both.
all.
Sir, sir, if
Write
we are
language.
able to
Understanding and
communicate,
application
we are
in our daily life.
Yes, sir. I too agree with LSRW. If I know a language, I understand, I speak, I read, and I write.
Okay. And there are so many people who cannot read and write. So can we say they don't know the language?
Yes,
exactly,
to
sir.
some
I was
extent,
about to
they
say
know
the
the
same thing.
language.
Huh?
They know the language.
Huh.
There is fifth element, that is thinking. So LSRW plus thinking element wherever it is, like LSRWT I call it. And RW might be missing sometimes.
Okay.
Sir,
So
in my
I'm
opinion,
going
if we
to
are able to communicate, we are
one
able
at a
to
time,
express
please.
our thoughts.
Yes,
So shall I
Preeti Sharma,
speak?
please go ahead. Yes.
Sir, I think that when we are able to communicate our thoughts, our emotions in any form, whether
Hmm.
it is writing or speaking, so
Hmm.
that is the point when we say that we know language. Although it may not be perfectly know because the other aspects are missing, but we can say that we know the language.
Okay. So what Preeti Sharma is saying, that raises an interesting point. So the focus is on communication, and focus is on successful communication. So it may not be perfect. A few aspects might be missing. Okay. So by this, probably you mean appropriate vocabulary and appropriate syntax, or maybe the discourse pattern, but communication happens. So to put it in a layperson's language, when we say that I know the language, so what I intend to mean is I can communicate my intentions. Okay, because there is a thought, there is an intention. In Hindi में कहा जाता है, or in all languages, I mean, we say समझे. So the most crucial thing about language use is samjhe, is a word which is frequently used in our lives. So so when we verify, we check. So what are we checking? So I am using language, but I am not sure I am communicating the things that I intend to communicate. So therefore, I verify. So here, it's not a question of any sort of perfection. Okay. Because perfection refers to standardization of language, and that is altogether a different issue. And any standard language is not a usable language. Okay, standard language is something which is reserved for other activities like academic work. Okay, which is neutral, which is universal, etc., etc. But all the languages that we use in our daily lives, so they are just human languages, and we use it for human purposes. And we can say that I have learned language, I know the language, means I have a reasonable competence in communicating the intentions that I want to communicate. Otherwise, what happens? We speak the same language, okay? You must have seen, I mean, there are several occasions, so you must have experienced it, that we use the same language, is basically a system of codes, okay? So there is a system of code of Hindi, there is a system of code of Punjabi, etc. There is a system of code. We use the same code, but there is a lot of miscommunication. So it's not necessary that, okay, if I say this thing, so everyone will get the same message. So therefore, we are always worried. There is this inherent embedded uncertainty in the use of language. It's not that transparent. Okay. So the third point is there are languages in the world. If you look at the history of languages, you will see there are families of languages, and these families are basically they have branched out into different languages because of the migration of humankind. So they migrated from one place to another place, and then so they retained a few features, and they kept on adding new things, etc. And language is context dependent. Please understand this also. Because in Igloo language or in Alaska or in people or the habitats near North Pole and South Pole, so there are more than 50 words for snow or ice. Okay, so in our context we have only 2 words. Okay, so in the sailor families, so there are at least 20 plus words for the ocean. So we have only 1 or 2. So the context influence. Now you can see that we are using the word bytes, okay, MB, KB, GB, etc., etc. So these words might be missing in the vocabulary of the people who are not used to, these things, these modern gadgets. So our language use is highly context dependent. And there are languages, the live languages are pluricentric and the dead languages are monocentric. Yeah, these are some of the principles that we need to keep this in mind. For example, English is a live language or Hindi is a live language. Okay. Now what it means that you have varieties of Hindi. So there are varied centers of Hindi like Bombaya Hindi, then you have Hyderabadi Hindi, then you have Lucknowi Hindi, etc., etc. So there are multiple centers, there are pluricenters, there are plural centers. So this is not a frozen language, though it is governed by one standard pattern, but all those standard patterns are not operationalized by all users. But if you look at a language like Sanskrit, okay, so this is a monocentric language because it's not used frequently. So there is only one code system, there is only one sort of variety which is used. It's very difficult to identify the dialects of Sanskrit. You will always come across the standard variety of Sanskrit or Latin. All right. So at this backdrop, so we are going to look at language thinkers. Language is something which can be classified as a science, as art, and also as a social artifact. Okay. Language is everything. So social scientists tend to look at language as a social activity. Okay. So those who are like people who engage in arts, so they look at it as a humanities perspective. So it's an art and it's a science also. People who are linguists, so they are the science. So we look at language in terms of in terms of, let us say, the syntax, the vocabulary, the grammar, etc., etc. So in order to understand what language means, how languages can be taught, how languages can be learned, we need to look at what language constitutes of. Okay. Now, in order to answer this question, what are the constituent elements of language? You need to ask a question to yourself. If I have to teach, let us say, my first language to somebody who is not familiar with it, what shall I teach? Shall I begin with the sound? Shall I begin with the word? Shall I begin with the sentence pattern? And so whatever that comes to my mind is my idea of language. Okay. When I ask the question at the beginning, what is language? Some people say that it's identity, it's culture, and so on and so forth. So, but if when I ask this question to myself, okay, I am a teacher of English, I teach English. So what do I teach in the name of teaching English? What do I teach? I teach letters, I teach spelling, I teach grammar, okay? I teach prosody, etc. So can I teach identity directly? No. It's the second layer of the language. So what constitutes language? So language thinkers.
Sir, this,
Yes, please.
Yes, symbols.
I think the sound
Okay.
words.
Okay. No problem. Jyoti Verma, you're saying something. I missed.
So I said sound symbols, nothing else.
Okay.
Just
Okay. Okay. So sounds and symbols are something, we have zeroed down. Okay. We have, when we engage in reductionism, because language is a vast thing. It's like the entire universe is a language universe. If you reflect on this, we live in a linguistically constructed world. If language is taken off our life, nothing exists. Everything is language, is a construction of language. So this is such a vast subject. So if you put it in a funnel and if you reduce it, okay, now I have to teach X, Y, Z language to somebody, then what will I teach? And then we have to ask a question that, do I really succeed in teaching all I intend language to be? For example, we say that language is a means of communication. So if I teach only ABCD, spellings, etc., then am I teaching the communication to my student? Okay. Then if I have to teach communication, what should I teach? It's a complex issue. Okay. There aren't any easy answers at all. So there is a fine book I would like to direct your attention to. There is a book by Kelly. I forgot the first name, Kelly, Kelly. So the title of the book is 25 Centuries of Language Teaching. So he traces the history of language teaching for the last 25,000 years. 2,500 years. Okay. 2,500 years, 2500. So, and it's an interesting read. Yeah, people have struggled. What is language? And when we look at the work of language thinkers, so we are basically looking at this thing: what constitutes language? Yeah, that is the contribution of the language thinker. So I'll begin with two anecdotes or the two mythological stories, so that tell us about the origin of language. One comes from the Indian tradition, and the other comes from the Greek tradition. Okay. So in the Indian tradition, now when I say India, so don't bring before your eyes the map of India as it exists today. Okay. So when we say India from this linguistic perspective, grammarian's perspective, etc., is Indian subcontinent. Okay. It comprises of almost 7 to 8 countries. I mean, it starts somewhere in Afghanistan and it stretches on east towards Myanmar, and on the north from Tibet to Sri Lanka. It's the entire landmass. So that is Indian subcontinent. Now, like Panini was, he comes from a region in Pakistan today, the great grammarian of India. So in the Indian tradition, how languages came into existence. Yeah. So the legend says that the confusion of tongues resulted from the pride of a tree of knowledge. So there was some tree of knowledge, and it took pride in its potential, in its capabilities. So it grew so high, it was standing at the center of the earth, and it started growing and growing and growing, and it touched the heaven. Okay. And it declared that now I shall hold my head in the heaven, and my body on the earth, and my roots in the patala. Okay. So I will govern everything. Now I am the master. So hearing this, the Brahma, one of the trinities of Indian tradition gods, so he grew angry. He is the god of creation, and he severed its branches, okay, and cast them on the earth. So all those branches are basically our languages. So this is the story which comes in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana of Indian tradition. So how languages came into existence. So this is the Indian history of language. Then the Western history is the story of the Babel. Okay. Anybody familiar with this Babel story? So
It
Babel.
was
Yes,
a
sir.
tower somewhere
Yeah. So
where
yeah,
a lot of people were talking together.
Exactly. So it's a tower. So it's a Babel's massive structure is a massive tower, and it was built by people, and they aspired again to reach the heaven. Okay, so they wanted to erect such a tall tower. Okay, and so gods felt threatened. Yeah, they say that okay, now humans can come and encroach our territory, etc. So again, what they did, so they just struck the tower, they collapsed it, and then they divided the humanity, because the people who were constructing, they were using the same language. So then they put the gods put these people in different parts of the earth, so their languages differed. Okay. Now, because in the world today we say that there are 7,000 plus languages. These are live languages, and about equal number of languages are dead. In India itself, it's recorded that we have about 3,000 plus languages, but about 70 odd languages are in use, and remaining 3,000 languages, they exist as our heritage. Okay, so they are there. And there are very few users of these languages. There are some languages that I know of, like Jarwa community in Andaman Nicobar Islands. So they are about 140 people or so. So once those people are gone, so that language is also gone. So language death also accounts for several other things. Even the loss of biodiversity is ascribed to the death of language diversity. But if you are interested in it, so I'll direct you to read something, or maybe it's in some other session. So this is the origin of language. And there are several perspectives about the language itself. And when we say there are several perspectives, those perspectives basically restrict themselves to the constituent aspects of language, what language is made of. Yeah. So here, the Eastern and Western perspectives radically differ. So there is Indic perspective, so what language is. In the Indic perspective, the focus is primarily on sound, meaning, and speech. There are three things: sound, meaning, and speech. Your R and W is not there. Even Ferdinand de Saussure, the great linguist, whose contributions gave us structuralism or structuralist notion of language, who was a professor of Sanskrit in Zurich University, he also says that language is meant for speaking and listening. It's not meant for reading and writing. Okay? The primary purpose of language is speaking and listening. So Indic tradition focuses a lot on sound and meaning and speech. Or if you are familiar with the four Brahmas, so there is Nada Brahma, there is Vak Brahma. Vak is the Vani or the Vacha. So they say there are four Brahmas in the Indian tradition, in the Hindustani tradition, and one of them is Vak Brahma. So Vacha. So it's a part, it's Brahma. It's one of the divine entities. Then the other two are Akshara Brahma, and then, which is a later addition, and then the Anna Brahma. So without food, you cannot survive. Okay. So these are four essential elements. So there are several ancient Indian grammarians, starting with Panini. Then you have Patanjali. Patanjali is more famous as for the Yoga Sutras. But please remember, Yoga Sutras is a very small contribution of Patanjali Rishi. But the major contribution of Patanjali is basically his thinking on language. And then in the Bhartrahari, and then there are a host of scholars. We don't know their names, but they have created Vedangas. So there are Vedas and Vedas Anga, or parts of Vedanga. There are 6. So I am going to present all of them to you. And then there are contemporary, I don't know why in your module it is given as South Asian ELT thinkers, because there is a leap from, we are looking at what language is and you are directly coming to English language teaching. So here the people listed are Prabhu, Krishna Swami, Kumaravadivelu, Kanagaraja, Kachru, etc. Okay. And then you have other Western thinkers. I mean, the thinkers at par with like Panini, etc. So you have Chomsky, Ferdinand de Saussure, Michael Holiday, Leonard Bloomfield, and host of others. And I would like to place these Prabhu, Kumaraswamy, Krishna Swami, Kumaravadivelu, etc. in between. So at one point you have Panini, Bhartrahari, Patanjali, etc. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Noam Chomsky, Ferdinand de Saussure, J.L. Austin, then Searle, Michael Holiday, Bloomfield, etc. And in between you have Prabhu, Krishna Swami, because Prabhu, Krishna Swami, etc. they are applied linguists. They are not linguists, because they have actually attempted to put in use the principles of language discovered by these linguists, proper linguists. So let us begin with the Indic perspectives on language. In your chapter, the Indic perspective is contrasted with Chomskyan view of language. Okay. Chomsky said that knowing a language means processing the input. Okay, this is what Noam Chomsky is still alive now, completely decapacitated. So he said that knowing a language means processing the input and creating your own linguistic structures in your mind. So, if I asked a question at the beginning, what is meant by the language learning or language acquisition? So when we learn language, basically we learn the structure of language. Okay. Now by structure, I mean the grammatical patterns. We don't learn each and every sentence because we learn the meta structures like subject plus verb plus object, etc. Okay. We actually absorb these patterns and we put them in use. So this is the Chomskyan perspective. But the Vedic tradition, where education was primarily oral in nature, because oracy was predominant. So therefore, we have this term called Shruti. Shruti is something which is listened. Okay, Shruti and Smriti. These are the two terms which are used for the corpus of Indian knowledge. Again, by Indian knowledge, I mean knowledge in the Indian subcontinent. So here, so there is a lot of emphasis on the orality. Okay, the things are transferred by word of mouth and they are retained in your memory, which is Smriti. So this is these are the epistemologies, how something can be acquired. So India's multilingual reality is always emphasized, and we always say that we had multiple languages, and language is defined at several levels. We define it at the sound level, then the reflection of sound is in terms of letters. Letters are basically the representative symbol of the sound. Okay. If I ask a simple question like what is the distinction between a letter and a sound?
Sound is for audio purpose and letter is for visual purpose.
Okay. Do we have enough letters for all the sounds that we make?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, please keep this in mind.
Sir, in English it is less, but
Yeah,
in
mixed
other
letters.
language like Hindi and Sanskrit, there are a lot of
Yeah, even in Hindi
there are
and
a lot of
Sanskrit,
letters for sound.
even in Hindi and Sanskrit, we have a set of letters which is larger than English, but still all sounds cannot be captured by those letters.
Sir, a letter is a symbol of the sound.
Yeah, letter is a symbol of the sound, but it captures that sound approximately, not exactly. So therefore, there are several people. I mean, you're all English teachers. Then most of you might be teaching also. There, how many vowels are there in English?
5. 12, sir.
Five.
Okay.
12 vowels,
Okay.
sir.
So there's a
Five.
so popular Indian
Five.
answer is actually 5, but actually in English there are 20. There are
Yes,
20
sir.
vowels.
Including diphthong, there are 20.
Yeah,
Sounds.
diphthong is also a vowel.
Yes,
When
sir.
you mix
So
with the
Yeah.
sounds, then 20.
12 plus 8.
Yeah. So I mean, therefore there is there's a spelling problem in India. So it's because of that the sound and the letter system. So we don't have corresponding letters for all the sounds that are there in English. Okay. So this is enough evidence that language is meant for speaking. Okay. So writing was invented very, very late in our history. Okay. So coming back to the Indic tradition, so we shall look at the Indic tradition quickly, and then we will spend a little time on understanding the non-Indic tradition. So there are a few concepts. I'll share the document and I'll type so that you have the double layered input, because I am not using any PowerPoint. Just give me a minute. I'll share my screen. Okay. Okay. You all can see this blank document, right? Can you all see? Yes. Thank you. So there are several, what constitutes language. So we are looking at the Indic tradition. Indic tradition or thoughts on language. So there are concepts. Dhvani, then you have Sphota, then you have Nada, okay? Then you have Bhasa, or which is Bhasha, and then Vak, and then Shabda, okay? So, and then this vak is further subdivided into, there are 4 parts. So there is para, and there is Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. Pashyanti, then you have Madhyama and Vaikhari. So these are the, okay, I'll come to each one of them, what they mean. So this is Vani. Okay, Vak is Vani or speech, or you can simply understand it as speech. All right. So let's look at one by one. So Dhvani, so this is the physically produced audible sound. Okay. So Dhvani comes from the word Dhvana. Okay. So it's like a humming sound. And this humming sound is nothing but, I mean, if you put your, if you put your hand on your throat, okay, you see this area, and you say Z, so you will feel a vibration here. Okay. So that is the universal sound. We call it Shwa in linguistics. So all sounds are basically manipulated. This is the original sound, and they are manipulated into several other sounds. So this is Dhvani. So in Panini's usage, the unchanging acoustic signal actually heard by the listener. So Dhvani is something, Dhvani we can say is a sound, okay, and this is something which is actually heard by the listener. This is heard by the listener. Because what happens before Dhvani, so that is not accessible to the listener. This is what Panini says. Okay. Now Sphota is the sound. Okay. So the sound is coming from the person who is making, for example, in this case, I am making the sound here. So this sound, now you are grasping it. Okay. You are receiving it, and you are receiving it in 2 ways. Okay. You are receiving it through your ears, that is one, and you are also receiving it through your intellect. In the modern fashion, we call it cognition. Okay. So you are grasping this sound from 2 channels. So there is this materialistic channel, ears. So the sounds are entering, and then they are going to a cognition. So this is the Sphota is the sound grasped by intellect. So whatever the intellect grasps, what is it called? Can anybody try? Guess? No.
Sota.
Sphota is the standard term. But what intellect grasps is meanings. Okay.
Comprehension.
So when I say water, so you don't listen to it as 3 or 4 different sounds like w, t, and r. Okay, that is the job of the ear. So that listen, but your intellect listens it as something, an object in the world. Okay, maybe when you say when we say water, a river comes to our mind, or a glass. Okay, or something like that. So this is Sphota. Sphota is basically, when something is, an input comes to you, so that input metamorphoses, or it translates, it transforms itself into a meaning in the mind. Okay. And to happen this properly, I mean to happen that Sphota properly, in simple words, we can say that Sphota is nothing but samajna. Okay, comprehending something, understanding something. Okay, I don't like the word understanding, because understanding is very vague, because it doesn't tell us anything. And we have no clue or no way of gauging what people understand. There is a comprehending or deciphering, etc. So in order to happen this kind of Sphota, what is required? Nada. Nada is the melody and tone. Okay, so it's a mix of melody and tone. So this is actually accompanied with the dhvani. Nada is accompanied with the dhvani, and that generates meaning. Okay, when I say coffee, Okay, what do you understand? Coffee.
Coffee is a drink that we use. It's a
Okay,
kind
Sir,
of
it's a
beverage.
beverage.
excellent. If I say coffee,
Yeah. Coffee is a beverage. It's a drink. I mean,
You
yes.
hot
are
drink.
Maybe in a form of question we are asking coffee.
Okay, okay, okay. So now you look at the modulation. So this is the nada. If I say coffee, it's a beverage. Okay, coffee. Maybe,
Asking, do you want
maybe,
coffee?
uh,
Or you?
or coffee. I guess such a trivial thing you want. I mean, you can have as many coffees as you want. Okay,
I think
so
expressions
so
behind that.
we add this thing to it. Okay, so the spelling remains the same, everything remains the same, but what happened? The nada changes the meaning. The sphota. Okay, the outcome of the sphota is different. So to understand this, there is a fine clip on the YouTube. So you all must be familiar with that great Hamlet's dialogue: "To be or not to be, that is the question." Okay. So you can watch it. So there are varied actors, and they are stressing each word. To be or not to be is the question. To be or not to be is the question. To be or not to be is the question. Okay. So you can go on emphasizing it, and the meaning, the outcome of the utterance changes. Okay. So dhvani, sound, nada is the accompanying intonation, and together they produce phota, that is meaning. Okay, let us simplify it. Now, bhasha is the amalgamation, is a blend of all these three: dhvani, phota, and nada. So when all these three things come together, so what you get is a bhasha. Okay. Bhasha is a general term for language. Now, Sanskrit is also a bhasha. Okay, Sanskrit is bhasha. And Sanskrit is not a proper noun, please remember this. Sanskrit is basically an adjective. Sanskrit is the language which has been, has gone through several samskaras. I mean, the samskaras are done by people like Panini and Patanjali. So the bhasha which has undergone a lot of samskaras is Sanskrit. Okay. So now this is bhasha. Then you have the word, this term, these are all concepts. So vak. So this is the most comprehensive term. So when you walk, when you speak something, so you are basically using all three in one go, like dhvani, nada, and sphota. You are using all three in one go. Okay. So this is the most comprehensive term. Okay. And there are four levels of vaka. So the first level is para. So para is the transcendent. Okay, para is paralok or that kind of thing. So the Vani has, I mean, so what is communicated by these four terms, para, pashyanti, madhyama, vaikhari? These are basically speech acts. In English, this has been studied as speech acts. So when we say para, everything has an ulterior end. So when somebody says, what is the meaning of life? So it's a rhetorical question. Nobody knows what is the meaning of life. Or even we don't know. I mean, if we extend this logic, we don't even know the meaning of the meaning. We don't know what is meaning. Okay. So para is this kind of interpretation, which is abstraction, which is engaging in metaphysics, etc. Pashyanti is seeing something. Pashyati. So there is a Sanskrit word like pashyati. Pashyati is seeing something. Okay. So this is the pre-verbal level. So when we want to say something, so some thought process that goes beforehand. So we see something and then we language it, we convert that into language and utter it. That is Pashyanti. Okay, that is second level. Madhyama is the utterance actually. Okay, so it comes through a madhyam as a medium. That is Madhyama. And para Pashyanti Madhyama. So, and then the last one is Vaikhari. Vaikhari is something that people receive. Okay, what actually goes to their brain. Now, you can apply this to your teaching also. Because para is something, why I am teaching English. So there is an ulterior, philosophical end to it. I want to do that, achieve that. Then pashyati is I imagine something, lesson plan. I create a sort of lesson plan. Then I deliver the lesson plan. And what students get is vaikhari. Okay. So these are four vanis. Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and vaikhari. And then the last but not least is the Shabda. And the Shabda is often mistranslated as word, but Shabda is not word only. Okay, it is word, but partly, but it is something more. So Shabda in the Indian tradition, it refers to something closer to the authoritative testimony. Okay, so Shabda, Shabda Dena, okay, giving a word. Giving a word means you are not just giving a word, you are doing something much more than just uttering a word. Are you getting this point? So Shabda is a much serious affair. It's not just a simple word as we understand in English, but Shabda, it comes with a lot of loaded baggage. So it's the authoritative testimony. So it is timeless and it is one of the three pramanas. In Indian tradition, Shabda refers to pramana. So there are three pramanas. There is a pratyaksha, so something that exists, like there is a tree. So when I utter the word, so you can go and see a tree which actually exists. Anumana. Okay. So you can say that in the jungle there might be many trees. Okay. So this is you are inferring, you are guessing, and then Shabda. So you can say that okay, this is the symbol or the sign that I am using for it. Right. So this is the Indian, or there is a lot to it, but I have just tried to, give you in the form of capsule this thing. So there are many thinkers like Panini. He comes from the 4th century BC. He has written a work called Ashtadhyayi, so which are 8 chapters containing roughly 4,000 sutras about, and all these sutras, they actually look at the constituent aspects of language such as phonetics, so which is the classification of the sounds, then morphology, which is the smallest unit of the word formation, then the syntax, and semantics. Semantics is the science of meaning. And the descriptions are basically sutras. They are extremely terse, but they are systematic, and these are all meta rules. Okay, so these are all meta rules. Like in English, we have meta rule, like you add s to the third person singular verb, something like that. So Panini is responsible for creating some linguistic universals and also the differentiation and the classification of sounds. For example, if you have learned the Indian languages Barakadi, like ka, kha, ga, ga, nga, cha, cha, ja, jha, nya, etc. So you can see that these have been organized according to the Paninian principle, because they all emanate from the same point of articulation. So the position of the tongue remains same when you utter all these 5 sounds like ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. Okay, then cha, cha, ja, jha, nya. So this is mode of articulation. The mechanics involved in the production of these sounds though remain same. So this classification is ascribed to Panini. And then what Patanjali did, Patanjali comes in the 2nd century BC. So he is the author of Mahabhasha. The proper title of this work is Vyakaran Mahabhasha. And in Vyakaran Mahabhasha, he developed something called Shabdanushasana. Shabda Anushasana means the science of words, how words must be used. In other words, it's about language. Now, how language? I'll give you in simple terms. Is that when we use language, what we basically do is we create labels, we create names, and we create classification systems. So we label it and we classify it. You remember when this COVID came, everybody was at loss, nobody was able to understand what is happening with the world. But all of a sudden, in the month of April or so, after this lockdown was announced in India, so scientists named it, baptized it, uska naamkaran kiya unhone. This is COVID-19. So we have a label. And then it was classified as something hostile to human life. So this kind of classification goes on, and this is discussed in Vyakaran Mahabhasha. Then comes in the 5th or 6th century, soon after Panini, Bhartrhari, another great thinker on language. So he has written a work which is available to us. He has written several, but only one has come down to us. That is Vakyapadiya, so which is on sentences and words, which is an essay. So he tells us something about the Vakya Khanda. Vakya Khanda is in English, the closest equivalent is clause. Okay. So he says that it's not the words that individual words make meaning, but Bhartrhari says that the cluster of words that make the meaning. Okay. So this is the contribution of Bhartrhari. And after that, let's quickly look at the Western thinkers, or non-Indic thinkers such as Ferdinand de Saussure. So Ferdinand de Saussure's contribution is important. So Ferdinand de Saussure says language is made of signs. Okay, language is made of signs.
No, camera on नहीं है.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, so sign is made of two things. So this is, sorry, there is signifier plus signified. So sign is made of two entities. There is signifier and there is signified. And signifier is, let us say, sound or the word, and signified is the object, so which is beyond word. And what Ferdinand de Saussure says, that the relationship between signifier and signified is arbitrary. Okay, so there is a relationship between signifier and signified is arbitrary. For example, if I say there is a word tree, now when I say the word tree, so what happens? So the word tree, either written or spoken, so this is the signifier, and it directs your attention to something outside you. So there is an image of it in your brain, but there is an object outside. So that is the object reality. Now the relationship is arbitrary, means now it is called tree because this is the consensus of the world, that whatever we see, like the stems, roots and leaves, etc., branches, so we shall describe that as tree. So this has been agreed by the world. Just imagine that tomorrow somebody decides that let us call it flower. Okay. So UNESCO or some makes a decision that there won't be any word like tree from tomorrow. We will call them flower. So let's rename them. So it becomes a flower. So, but if by calling it flower, the nature of the tree is not going to change. The object is going to remain the same. So what is meant is that the signifiers can keep on changing. So, but the objects remain same. And we don't have any direct access to the object. We cannot understand them. So access to objects is mediated by language and words. So this is the contribution. There are lots many other things given to us by Ferdinand de Saussure. I'll write the name also. Okay. This is Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure. Okay. And there's the counterpart to Saussure is Derrida. Okay, this is G-A-C-Q. Derrida. So Ferdinand de Saussure gave us structuralism, and Jacques Derrida gave us post-structuralism. So, and these are very complex, dense scholars. So when I was studying, we used to call them Sassara and Derinda. Okay. Because I mean they had given a lot of hard time to us to understand what is meant by language. So Ferdinand de Saussure, and I'm telling you because you can also remember these names very well. So Ferdinand de Saussure has given us another notion called langue and parole. So langue is the language that we know, and parole is the actual utterance. Okay, langue is an abstract thing. Okay, this is an abstract thing, and it covers the entire language. Okay, and parole is equal to actual utterance. Okay, whenever we utter something, so we can't utter all the language that we know. We utter just a part of what we know. So what we know, that is far, far bigger and denser than what we actually can utter. So these are the contributions of Ferdinand de Saussure. He was born in 1857, died in 1913. Then Noam Chomsky, Noam Chomsky did something wonderful. What he did was he gave us the idea of linguistic competence And linguistic competency is nothing but input, then the process, and then the acquisition. Earlier, it was believed, there's a what Noam Chomsky did was Noam Chomsky actually countered behaviorism. And the thing that we are dealing with is actually I teach it over a period of 8 weeks in the course that I teach at the university. Here we are doing it in 1 hour. Okay, so therefore we have to rush. If you need more, then you can request your Dr. Ganga, so we can do another session on this. I am happy to do. So Noam Chomsky is actually countering behaviorism. So behaviorism said that there is a stimulus, you give the input, and then you can expect the output. आप किसी को कुछ बताइए, कुछ समझाइए, वो सीख लेंगे. Okay. In other words, if you teach them the, let us say, tens, so they will learn the tens. Okay. It's something like that. But Noam Chomsky says, and therefore we have a lot of drilling, etc. Probably in your childhood, your teachers might have asked you to write a word 1,000 times in your notebook, or recite something, or learn something by heart, etc. So that is basically behavior input. Okay, you go on input, and right things are reinforced and wrong things are penalized, punished. And this was one of the ways of teaching and learning. But Chomsky says this thing doesn't work, because by telling somebody, by just giving the inputs, you cannot make them learn anything, because there is this software here. So whatever input that goes, so this it gets processed in the software. Our brain is a complex organ, so there are lot many neurons. So there are neuron circuits. So the information is verified and checked, and then the brain decides what to retain and what to discard. And there are lots many other. There is a neuroscience dimension to it. So there is input, and there is this brain processing, and brain processing happens to the experience, the kind of experience that one has. So that experience facilitates the processing of the language or any input. If you are teaching mathematics, there is mathematical input. If the learner has a very bad experience of learning mathematics, then that is going to filter out everything, because this uptake is going to be very low. So that leads to acquisition. So this is the work of Noam Chomsky. And when you acquire something, so you develop a competence. Competence is the ability to communicate your intention to others swiftly, smoothly, without any leakage or loss of information. All right. And then the last one, I'll speak here, and then I'll open the floor for your Q&A. Then you have the speech act theory. So this is by J.L. Austin and John Searle. So there are two famous names again, Austin and Searle. So what they say that when we use language, so we don't use language in a very flat way. So he classifies it as locutionary act, okay, elocutionary, and perlocutionary. Okay. So there is a distinction. There is a locutionary, elocutionary, and perlocutionary act. So locutionary act is like, you have the literal meaning of it. Okay, it's like if somebody says close the window, so which means close the window. That's it. It has a very limited meaning. It has a limited meaning. Close the window means close the window, nothing more. Just give me a minute, please. So it has a limited meaning. When I say that stand up, so that means you just stand up. Then elocutionary is a second way of using this vak, okay, to use the Indic term. So here you do by speaking, okay. It's like you do something just by speaking. This is a final warning to you. Okay. So here you are not just saying anything, you are also accomplishing an act through the speech. This is the final warning to you. Or you can say that I promise that I will do this in the next week. So you are not using language, you are performing. I have ordered 3 samosas. Okay, so you have done something. So this is the illocutionary act. And the perlocutionary act is the actual effect or the actual effect the utterance has on the listener. Okay. For example, you can say, what a cold weather it is. I say, is it cold? You call it cold. So probably it is cold for the person, but not to them, not to others. So this is the resulting effect. So he classifies further that all speech or all the use of language is not just the flat use of language, the communication, etc. Uh, any utterance doesn't guarantee the communication because there are several layers of the act. So sometimes it is some even if you want to intend the illocutionary act, for example, people understand it as locutionary. So there is a joke, fine joke, I mean, which you all must have seen on your Instagram or somewhere. So a delivery comes via Amazon, and the person asks for OTP. They say the OTP, OTP. So the person says OTP kaho. So they say OTP. Okay. OTP batao, OTP batao. So they don't know what that means. So this OTP thing is basically the illocutionary act, right? And the perlocutionary is the resulting effect. So these are the three Western thinkers. There is one more, M.A.K. Halliday. So M.A.K. Halliday's work is a little dense. So M.A.K. Halliday says that we make meanings not only out of our cognition, but the meanings which are there available in your socio-cultural ethos. For example, I mean, I'll give you a simple example. Like, if there are 2 doctors in the family, there is every possibility that the children end up becoming doctors. If there are lawyers, they will become lawyers. If they are builders, businessmen, they become businessmen. Why? Because the language has a powerful effect on our behavior. So in the doctor's family, in the lawyer's family, in the businessman family, so they keep on listening to that language, that terminology, that vocabulary. So that shapes their thinking and their behavior. So it's very difficult for somebody, let us say, a farm labor, and his children imagining to become a doctor or a lawyer, because that language is entirely missing in their socio-cultural ethos. It doesn't mean they don't become, but I'm telling you about the cultural capital. Okay. So some people have the additional cultural capital, so that facilitates that kind of movement very faster. So this kind of contribution, he calls it systemic functional linguistics, M.A.K. Halliday. So, and he is more pragmatic in his approach. Okay. So, thank you so much for your patient listening. So, I will stop here. So, we have about 21 minutes. So, I'm sorry, I mean, I plan to say a lot, but there is so much to say that we don't have enough time. So, if you want, I can do one more session at your leisure. Please do talk to Dr. Ganga.
Thank you so much, Dr. Krishna. It was an amazing and insightful session for all the learners who are present in this meet. Now we are going to start the Q&A session. So I'll basically be sharing my screen with you all. We have 3 questions so far, sir. So I'll be sharing my screen.
Yes, please.
And you can answer these questions one by one.
Yeah.
Can you see the screen, sir?
Yeah, I can. So which
Perfect.
century language can be called a completely evolved, or is it evolving? So I have already answered it. So language is complete at any given point of time. No language is incomplete. If the language used by the Neolithic times, so that was complete in themselves because it served the purposes people had at that point of time. Okay. So language is always complete. So this is something which is given by Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure says that language needs to be studied at any given point of time. We should not look at any sort of continuity in language. Children say things they never heard adults say. How does human language acquisition prove? So this is Noam Chomsky. Okay. So there is language input and there is this software, and that software is processing the information. So you might not have said it, but the child's brain, its curious organ, so its antenna is always up. So it captures lot many signals. This is thing number one. And thing number two is the brain itself is highly creative. It engages in permutations and combinations, and it comes up with several fantastic utterances. So Dvaipa and Roy, so this is our cognitive faculty that we have been endowed with, so that enables us to say the things which we haven't experienced. If the link between word and meaning is random, how do human languages achieve stable communication? So stable communication is achieved by consensus. Okay. So language, one of the foundational principles of language is convention and consensus. So there is a convention. For example, standing up. Okay, when an elder comes or a teacher comes or an authority comes, we all stand up. So stand up is a convention. And by the following this convention, what are we communicating? We are communicating that, okay, we are honoring you, we are respecting you. So, but this convention is not universal. It changes from context to context. So the word and meaning are definitely arbitrary. And, there is a lot of miscommunication, and you can see what is happening all around us. So it's basically this, the meanings I hold on to and the meaning somebody else holds on to. So there is a clash of meanings. So it is always there. And one of the things that Indic perspective can help here is, in Indic perspective, we don't see this kind of dichotomy between the word and its meaning. In Indic perspective, it is the vak or it is the spota. So Indic perspective puts a lot of onus on the listener. So what meaning is communicated to them, that matters most than what you have said. Okay. So there is a question by Alifia. Hello, Alifia. So can we say that language has evolved with the advent of technology? No, I don't say it has evolved. It has adjusted or recalibrated itself to the technological environment. Okay. So if you look at something, advancing means it has to keep on growing in terms, or let us say, let us put it in bluntly, in terms of the vocabulary corpus. But that is not the case. So we forget some vocabulary and we acquire new vocabulary. So language always calibrates and recalibrates to its context. Jyoti Verma is asking, does artificial intelligence truly understand language? Okay. This is a tough question. Artificial intelligence doesn't understand any language. Artificial intelligence is definitely built on the prototypes that we human beings provide to the machine. Okay. And artificial intelligence has become an overwhelming thing because now we have all the language which is available in the corpus. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have any language corpuses. But in the UK and in the US, so there is Lancaster corpus, and there is Longman's corpus, and there is Collins Covid corpus. So what they are doing, so they are basically recording, documenting every word uttered in English. So there is a huge corpus available, and that entire corpus has been fed into these computers or these computing machines. So therefore, so these artificial intelligence, depending on the version that you are using, so they come up with responses like a human being, or process the information. And why do Indian philosophical schools have different opinion in the understanding of language? Okay, Indian philosophical schools have a different opinion because, and even the Western philosophical traditions had a different opinion. The only difference is Indian philosophical schools, so they haven't evolved over a period of time, because whatever that has happened, if I mean, with the little exposure that I have and a few things that I have read, I can say that all the advancements and the learning and the reflection on the language have taken place until the 12th century. After the 12th century, much hasn't happened. But if you look at the Western schools of thought, so you see most of the happenings after 12th century. So therefore, there is a difference of opinion. Okay. So Barbara Smith, how does the 4 stages of speech relate to modern language production? Which 4 stages, may I know? Is it Is it Parapashyanti Madhyama Vaikhari? If that is, because that were the only 4 stages I mentioned here in this session. So para is the ulterior motive, because let us say I am teaching language, English. So what is the ultimate motive of teaching language? So this is para is something the higher order goal. Okay, the overarching goal of it. So Pashyante is something that you plan. Okay, so you plan a lesson, because you visualize, you see something happening in by the eyes of your imagination. Okay, so Madhyama is you deliver it to the class, and Vaikhari is what they take up. Okay, the students. Vaikhari is what they listen, and there is always a mismatch between what you say and what they listen. Okay, because just imagine, if every student has listened to what we have said, then everybody must have learned the same thing at the same point of time, but that doesn't happen. So this is the modern production, and then the Sheila Satish is saying the locutionary are pre-aspects, and the pre-aspects capture a lot in the language learning. Can it be a part of portfolios for poetry writing? Yes, you can. You can definitely make it a part of portfolio writing, but it depends on how, I mean, the form of the portfolio basically. How you want to, what kind of form you expect from the students. I understand listening and speaking are more important, but when it comes to non-native speakers, they are better at reading and writing than speaking. Okay, that is true, because we are better at reading and writing because we have been exposed to that language through reading and writing. Because that is the point of contact, first point of contact for us, reading and writing. So what should we focus on when it comes to our students? Okay, this is something serious. See, there is if you look at the history of ELT, thank you so much, Kanaka Tari, for asking this question. If you look at the history of ELT, which is about 200, 250 years old, okay. In the history of ELT, all the foundational methodology, if I have to use the word, was borrowed from the teaching and learning of classical languages. Okay. Like Latin and Greek. If you look at India, like teaching of Sanskrit. So when these languages, or even if you enroll in a Spanish class or a Japanese class today in 2026, so you will experience the same thing. What normally happens, so a lot of translation is used. So this is a journey from known to the unknown. So they will use a mediator, a language for mediation. Like if I am learning Spanish, so English will be used. So I'll be given English equivalents of Spanish, and then gradually I'll be moved towards Spanish. So, and this kind of teaching has been called in ELT, albeit abusedly. I'm saying it with full consciousness, that grammar translation method is a bad method. Yeah. So there is a fine article by Shirish Chaudhary, who was a professor at IIT Madras. So he has written that condemned without any crime. So grammar translation method has been simply condemned all over the world. This is okay, it doesn't contribute to the learning of language. But look at the people who have learned English in India. There is a long history. I mean, who have learned English far better than us. And they have learned it through that classical method. The other name for grammar translation method is classical method. So I would say that what should we focus when it comes to our students, speaking or writing? So a lot depends on what could be the purpose of language teaching and learning. Okay, for example, if you want your students to, let us say, communicate something, okay, then maybe I would say you do a little on the front of reading and writing, and you spend more on spoken inputs and inputs for listening as well. But if there is a lot of emphasis on reading and writing, then it is always better to spend time on reading and writing. But having said this, listen to this again carefully, that the career of a student today, okay, depends 60% on reading and writing, 40% on speaking. Because the reading and writing is going to stay. Because most of the academic work that happens in reading and writing, your examinations, I mean, I teach at the university here, I mean, 90% students of my class are extremely fluent. Some of them are more fluent than me. Okay, because they have been using English from their birth. They have grown up in English atmosphere. But they are very poor in writing. They cannot even simply write an application. And there are students who can write a fantastic essay, but they cannot give a good presentation. So what we need to do is we have to strike a balance. Okay, I'm not saying it diplomatically. We have to by striking a balance, I mean that more if we integrate the skills like writing and speaking, if we teach both of them at the same time, because there is a tendency to separate writing lesson from the speaking lesson. Instead of separating it, if we blend it, because for speaking also and for writing also, you have to brainstorm, you have to plan, okay, you have to create an outline, you have to do some strategize it. So if they go hand in hand, then I believe that we will be doing some justice to our students. But the final rider, no scholar in the ELT world has been able to decide which one to focus, the productive skills or the receptive skills. This is an unresolved issue. The modern commercial ELT, which is peddled everywhere in the world at the moment, so there's a lot of hype created about the articulation and the expression, etc. But if you look at the learning outcomes across our schools and colleges, despite so much emphasis on teaching spoken skills, etc., the outcome is not very encouraging. And I think by emphasizing more, this is a personal view, by emphasizing more on the spoken skills, so probably at the cost of reading and writing skills, we have trained our students poorly in those skills also.
All right, so that was all the questions we had for the day, sir.
Okay.
Because we are running short of time and we have to wind up and we have to conclude the session at 12:30 sharp.
Sure.
We'll just take one of the learners who would like to give a very short reflection on today's session. So we have Sheetal ma'am. I believe Sheetal ma'am, can you unmute yourself, turn on your video and give a short reflection and a vote of thanks, a very short one.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
It was
afternoon.
wonderful session. On behalf of everyone, I would like to thank you. And even though you said you don't have PPT, but this was really wonderful session, and it was so much of interactive and lot of learning has taken place. I guess everybody is also. I can see they are also with me. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for this session, sir. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Sheetal ma'am. Undoubtedly, it was an amazing session. Although today we are missing both Ganga sir and Vidhi ma'am, but still it was a very smooth session. On behalf of the CELE family, it is my privilege to propose Thanksgiving, the vote of thanks. So most importantly and prominently, a very heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Krishna K. Dixit sir. You know very well, sir is the director. He's a busy person, but yet he found some time from his busy schedule to give it to us. And thank you so much, sir, for delivering such an enriching and thought-provoking session on language thinkers. Your insightful reflections on both Indic and non-Indic language traditions, along with your engaging interaction during the question and answer session, have truly deepened our understanding and inspired us. And we look forward to having more sessions with you. I would also like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Ganga Mahato, our course coordinator. Although he is not there with us, I mean, he has not joined today's session due to his outstation commitments. He conveyed his warm regards and best wishes for the successful conduct of today's session. A special word of appreciation goes to all the participants, all the learners who are present. It is because of your enthusiastic presence and active participation and the rich exchange of ideas during the sessions that this is getting all successful and nice. So your thoughtful questions and your engagement has made today's session truly meaningful. And finally, I extend my thanks to the entire organizing team of CELE, who is everyone. They are working behind the scenes to ensure the smooth conduct of this session. And with this, we are going to conclude today's session. Thank you once again.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. May
Yes,
I
sir.
speak just? Yeah.
Yes,
Sir,
please.
really, I love your session, sir. And my request is your statement, Noam Chomsky countered behaviorist theories. Sir, we request our coordinators to have one more session with you. Please, I want to know more about this, how he countered the behaviorist theories. Thank you, sir.
Same here, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. So we are going to conclude the
I
session.
would also like to ask.
So we are looking forward to see you.
Good afternoon, sir. There is a humble request to share your email, sir, so that we may have some solutions of our doubts that are not asked in the session and remain unanswered. So kindly provide your email if you feel comfortable.
I will. I'm somehow not able to type here. What happened? Chat isn't available. It is.
So you
Sir,
can
you
share
can
it with
dictate.
me.
We'll
I'll
observe.
share it
We'll
with
observe.
everyone.
Sorry. So I'll.
Share it with me. I will share it with everyone.
Okay. ठीक है.
Thank you
Sure.
so much, Krishna sir. Have a good day.
Sir,
Alicia
I would
wants to
like
say
to ask
something. Okay.
one.
Please.
Yes.
Quickly.
In
Thank
between,
you, sir.
Sanskrit is not a proper noun. I just want to know why you said that.
What one?
In between, while you were explaining something, you said Sanskrit is not a proper noun.
Huh.
So
Sir,
why is it so?
Sanskrit is something